You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'll go first to my take for this morning. And I'm in a dilemma. Should I summarize or read? It's been a long time since I read my take. So let me attempt to read my take this morning. Now, this morning, my take, I entitle it, "The NCC's Job is the Media's Major Role." I was in Kumasi on Tuesday as a facilitator for an NCCE EU workshop themed Strengthening Civic Consciousness Through Media Advocacy. It is obvious the National Commission for Civic Education has a real need of the media to reach majority of citizens with its badly needed education. I'm sharing portions of my thoughts largely derived from the Constitution and the NCCE Act, which I shared with journalists from the northern zone of the country. At the workshop, I chose the above title and singled out the journalists, charging them to do a better job. But co-facilitator Nana Kwesi Jang Apingting, chairman of the National Media Commission, NMC, got me thinking even deeper when he opened his presentation, stating and reminding the participants that, quote, "You are a citizen first and then a journalist," unquote. We are constantly complaining about deterioration in the quality of habits, moral values, and respect for law and order, etc. We are quick to refer to the impact of the book Courtesy for Boys and Girls, the impact that book made on a generation of citizens, forgetting how much we have contributed to the state of affairs, where a generation is confused as it loses its unique social, cultural identity and rich heritage. The media, run by citizens, is doing a major disservice in this regard, flooding our television experience with everything but what identifies the true Ghanaian and the patriotic values that came as second nature to our forebears and made Ghana an envy of many nations. In Article 233 of the Constitution and Section 2 of the NCCE law, the Commission, among others, has the primary job, quote, "to create and sustain within the society the awareness of the principles and objectives of the Constitution as the fundamental law of the country of fundamental law of the people of Ghana, and to educate and encourage the public to defend the Constitution at all times against all forms of abuse and violations," unquote. Guess what? The media's primary constitutional duty in Article 1625 is to, quote, "at all times be free to uphold the principles, provisions, and objectives of the Constitution, and the responsibility and accountability of the government to the people of Ghana." The NCCE has an extensive job, not PR, which is often to correct, but its job is one that is aimed at avoiding what necessitates the corrective PR done by PR outfits of the police service, etc., etc. The NCCE is the mother educator on the issues that keep society alive to the demands of sanity and dignity, the issues that keep us in peaceful coexistence, the issues that sustain our democracy. It is the mother educator in teaching civic duties and responsibilities to empower citizens with the knowledge to assert and defend their rights and those of others, and to honor their obligations towards developing a beautiful country. In fact, if citizens will cultivate a habit of paying taxes, stand up against any form of brutality by any person in uniform, loathe cheating and cheating at elections and in examinations, stop bad and unlawful habits like littering, acts that threaten the environment and human survival, all forms of child abuse, etc. If people will resort to the Shraj, the Labour Commission, the police, the court, and other civilized lawful means of settling their grievances, the NCCE must lead the education. In this day and age, the NCCE, whose many offices are in a state of obvious neglect and which does not boast of any decent vehicle, needs the media to do this job efficiently. If the NCC has not been as visible and on the front pages of our minds as it ought to, it's largely the fault of the media. If you raise your voice that the NCC has been dormant or has failed in delivering on its mandate, raise that voice, but raise it against yourself for not insisting it is well-funded and assisted. If the NCC has such onerous responsibilities and should not own the widest national broadcast network, tell me how it is supposed to reach out to all of us in Hamile. See where the media comes in? If the NCC has such onerous responsibilities to enlighten, empower, and improve our society, tell me why it attracts the least budget and funding help, financial help from the state. In the meantime, what if the media dedicated a minute or two each day to a message from the NCCE? Like important independent constitutional bodies like the Shraj, when it functions, it is often by charity of donors like the EU. The politicians may feel threatened by the NCCE for the most bizarre reasons, but citizens know we need it. Citizens and electorates alive to their rights and responsibilities are a great asset to the future of Ghana. Let's demand and get what is due the NCCE. Thank you, and that's my take this morning. I hope that we are all able to do what it takes to ensure that we keep our nation and our democracy together. Now, let me introduce my guest this morning, and then we get to the issues that we have to discuss this morning. And my guest, Abdul Malik Kubako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. He's a regular panelist. Randy Abe, his name is synonymous with soccer, football, and he's host of Good Morning Ghana on Metro Television. Okay, so you certainly know why he's here, for a specific assignment, not sent by FIFA. Alexander Kwamina Afenyo Marking. He's MP, a FUTU member, Public Accounts, Defense and Interior Committees of Parliament. He likes to deal with matters of corruption and where particular public officials appear to be involved, and there are particular courts in this country you always find him and they fight him, but he never gives up. Isaac Adongo is MP, Bolga Central, and member the Finance Committee of Parliament. Of course, you know that we have to deal with the CD depreciation politics, and this is one voice that when it comes to matters of economy or economics, you certainly want to hear. So, gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Good morning.
Great. Good to have you. Right. So, we start with the matter that I spoke about in my introduction. I mentioned that water is life. Unfortunately, however, the sound of rainwater threatens life in Ghana and takes lives in Ghana, not only in Accra, really. We have the Bagri Dam that is open annually, and we sit and wait for it to be opened up, and the water that runs when it is opened up swallows citizens, human life, farms and homes along with it. Have you given up? Have you given up that there will be any solution? That's the question. And do you believe when government through the housing minister says that all we need is $700 million to fix the situation? Let's listen to these voices and return to the studio.
Even though I could go back many years, let's start from 2014.
Now, many parts of the national capital today have been inundated as choke drains have made it difficult for rainwater to freely flow through the drains. The bus terminal at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle was full, and the residents of Accra had to scoop water from their homes as a result of the rains. But this is not the first time Accra has been hit by floods, and almost every year the story or the reasons being given for the floods are the same.
In 2015, we reported again.
The cycle of flood is here again, and year by year, major cities in the country get flooded. The reasons, as always, are the same: lack of planning, pouring of waste into drains, and a host of other human activities. When will it ever stop? What will it take to save our cities from the perennial vulture cycle of flooding?
We're still in the capital and on the floods. Several residents within Aveno in Accra were temporarily thrown out of their homes by the flash floods. The affected residents are unsure how or where to pass the night.
Then the fire and flood disaster occurred, killing 150 people. Musicians sang about the flood disaster. Politicians promised never again.
The National Disaster Management Organization, the Hydrology Department of the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing, and the city authorities will also work to coordinate the clearing and expansion of our waterways and the desilting of our drains. Drastic steps are necessary here if we are to permanently address this perennial problem. We'll intensify our efforts to expand and modernize our drainage system.
But in 2016, we're back to the same script.
Hydrological engineer at the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, Wise Ametefe, has blamed yesterday's flooding on blockages in channels leading to the Odor drain.
In 2017, an elaborate plan was announced to once again end perennial flooding.
The government will, in the coming days, announce a comprehensive plan to deal permanently with the perennial flooding in the capital, Accra. The city's mayor, Mohamed Ni Ejesoa, says the new comprehensive plan will focus on redesigning the drainage system. He made this known after touring some communities affected by the Friday morning downpour.
Clearly, we are back to the same pointers again. Journalists have reported, musicians have sung about it, politicians have promised, yet nothing has changed. I hope we'll not be back to the same situation in 2019.
You know, for the past 3 days, we've had this serious rain in Accra and Tema metropolitan areas. In the night, our men did what we call search and rescue. We were able to rescue many citizens who were affected. Even though we've recorded some death, it's normal, you know, it will happen. You can't beat nature. Our men are on the ground all over the affected areas doing need assessments. Yesterday, myself, the Minister for Interior, Defense and National Security went around Tema and Accra metropolis to assess the situation. As I speak now, national security is meeting on the issue. The president himself is showing a very big interest, sympathizing with those who lost their life and those who have been affected.
Prempe, do you have a sense of the exact figures in terms of the death toll, the number of people you've rescued over the past 2 days?
Yeah, for now it's about 6.
Going around, people are raising concerns about the response time of your men. I mean, we were all not expecting what happened on Monday, but going forward in the subsequent days, what is the plan to ensure that your men moving quickly?
By the response aspect.
So we've gone to places where they place phone calls, the areas are being flooded, and the NADMO officers do not come in time to assist them.
We are in a developing country. There are countries when disasters happen, helicopters are moving all over to go and rescue people. We don't have that. We are in Ghana. In Africa, we don't have the enough thing like when it happened in Russia and America and other places, they can respond. But we did our best. Ghanaians should at least appreciate what we did. Our men never slept in the night. We were everywhere. All of us were everywhere, moving everywhere to rescue people. You don't know how many cars we have, how many equipment we have. So sometimes you'll be somewhere, you have to finish somewhere and move to the other place. We did a lot. And thanks to the police service, the fire service, and especially the 48 engineers, when it became tough, they came in to help us. We did a lot.
This government has taken serious steps to address permanently the flooding situation in Accra. So doesn't matter whether we started 6 months ago, 3 months ago, At least, we are in June. Today is 28th of June. This time, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, properties have been lost, lives have been lost. But this time, we're only talking about an unfortunate one life lost. So you can see that if steps had not been taken, what befell this country on the 3rd of June 2015 would have befallen us by now, as we speak. The ministry has identified all these projects along the breadth and the length and breadth of Ghana. But we are waiting for the ministry to issue us with a commencement certificate. And once we receive that, which I believe will come shortly, but the commencement has been released to us. So that's why they are out there working. So once we get that, we have to then proceed to PPA based on the threshold of these various contracts. The PPA at that stage, because of the emergency nature of the rains and what have you, we may decide to go apply for sole sourcing so that the contractors can then move to site as opposed to going through the normal PPA process. So all these things are being done. So when I say excavation works haven't started, they haven't started but I can tell you that we have the list of all the areas that we are going to excavate, all the areas we are going to construct. We have all that. But the monies that must be allocated to the commencement certificate from finance has not been issued yet. And we are hoping and praying because it's all down to money. But that is why government took steps to just do the silting and some major drains so that Accra does not, flood.
Right. So those were some voices that you heard from persons who are supposed to be able to take charge and control of the situation. You heard from NADMO, you heard from Nana Juman Prempe, who is the NADMO boss, you heard from Eugene Boachi, who is the Deputy Minister, Works and Housing. And how do you feel about what they're saying? It does appear that we always have the plans and we are always working, except that it does not affect the flooding situation. Kweku, now we're back, and I can recall that we have been here almost every year.
Sure.
And your first word, there have been times when you have declined to even comment because you say you are tired. Today, let's attempt to go beyond just saying I'm tired of it, I don't want to talk about it anymore. We're hearing of some plans and things that ought to be done. First of all, what do you say about what has happened? And we're using the doctor who suffered, and there are 4 other lives that were lost in this regard. A total of 6 people died, including the 3 who died in their home in Ho, to highlight this situation.
Well, what else do you expect me to say? You were reading my mind. Same old story, be recycled. What we've been doing is just a ritual, lamentation, pouring out sentiments. And then we hear, of course, the politicians or those who are entrusted with authority also promising what to do. It's the same old story. I'm sure if you were to play back what we've been doing the last 15, 20 years, the same thing. We're just going to repeat ourselves here today. And that's what hurts, And to be honest, if you were to take your time to do the research, you realize that it's been with us since 1959. Since 1959. Go check the records. 59, there was a major one. Then 68, then 95. I have all the records here. And it's been interrogated in many places. Parliament, go and check the Hansard. Many occasions that when these floods happen, Parliament sits on it, discusses it, interrogates all the issues, prescribes solutions. The executive also comes out announcing loan agreements that they have acquired, loans that they've acquired to build drains and all those things. Look, bottom line is town and country planning. You see, urbanization comes with its own challenges. But we don't plan our towns, we don't plan our cities the way they ought to be planned. We allow structures to be put up anywhere, anyhow. Meanwhile, we have agencies, the MDAs, MMDAs are there. We are paying people. You know? Well, what else can I say? I don't have the competence in terms of the technical and professional competence to prescribe solutions.
But a social, political leadership approach, is that something you can imagine that ought to be done so that we don't come back here again? I mean,
I'm not sure we'll not come back here again. We will come back because this challenge, it will take time to resolve. That's why it should have begun long ago in a systematic, comprehensive, determined manner. We'll come back. Maybe some efforts have been done. I mean, let me not sit here and pretend that nothing at all has happened. Maybe those efforts have actually mitigated the situation, may have improved the situation in certain areas. Yes, that's a fact.
Yes, the Deputy Minister Eugene Entry, as you heard him, spoke about 200 million that is being, pumped into various projects, and that a few months before this month, they have done some desilting of some drains and other places. So they believe that that has contributed.
Yes, and I'm not even talking in terms of recent.
Okay.
I'm looking at an overall situation over the last 10 or so years. There are some places that used to suffer seriously, but because of some drainage systems that have been put in place, some of those places there's been an improvement. But overall, it is obvious that what we've been doing is insufficient to tackle the nature and scale of the challenge. That's obvious. So why have we become talkatives relative to this matter rather than action-oriented? Okay? It's sad. Human lives are lost. So that's where the difficulty is. Even if it was one life, you can quantify it in monetary terms. You don't know the impact it has on a family and on a society. So the question about one or two, for me, sometimes you are not careful, you can be, perceived as being insensitive.
Right.
So you've got to be careful what language you use and how you go about it. But clearly, there is something basically wrong with how we plan our cities and towns. We forget that urbanization comes with an exploding population. Okay? And we build our houses anyhow. Drainage systems don't exist even in some places. Look, Tema. In the early days, when Nkrumah put up Tema, fantastic, integrated. It's drainage system, the planning, the communities and things. Right now, Tema is destroyed. We have done things there. We've put everything together, and it's an ugly picture that you have there. So we don't plan. Okay? This is Hansard. This is 2nd November 2005. Planning of Cities and Towns in Ghana. Mr. John Jintua, NDC member for Amenfi West. Fantastic if you read. He put all the problems. If you read today, you think this thing is being made yesterday in Parliament House. He had all the answers. He showed all the challenges. This is 2005. 2018, we are sitting here and discussing the same thing, and many of the things the gentleman pointed out are here. To be honest with you, sometimes you wonder if we should continue being proud as Ghanaians. What I've done is lamentation. I'm not sure I've prescribed any solution. Those who must bring the solutions, I know. We have engineers, we have town planners. Even the land tenure system, the land system itself is part of the problem. We've poured in billions of dollars to change our land policy. I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Presently, we are going to use, the Nation Builders Corps to help in that direction.
Millions of dollars have been pumped in there over the last 10 years. I'm not sure what progress we've made. The professionals, are we even training some of them to meet the present challenges, or they are still in the past? This is a Herculean task. It needs a comprehensive national policy, both on housing, on land tenure, and town and country planning. We have the experts. I think we have the brains in this country. If we don't, we can tap onto international expertise, combine the two, and meet the challenge. I've just spoken. No solution.
Randy, when Kweku speaks the manner he did, and he says he finds himself in a conflict situation whether to be proud of Ghana. When Kweku Bako says that's bad, really bad, isn't it?
Well, it's extremely bad. What has saved me this morning is that I'm on the other side, because I've been on your side for 22 years, leading the discussion on the same thing.
Right.
You know, and like I said, the only difference is that you are now doing the question. I just read something, and I'm sure it's part of Kweku's documents. And I would mention the year this was said, and we relate it to what is happening today. Now it says, following the bad floods in June, I omit the year, the detailed design of measures necessary to prevent a recurrence of such misfortune has been well advanced. The measures include the dredging of the Kpeshie Lagoon to form a deep lake, the construction of a new wider channel for the river, Odo, and new larger bridges across the channel to carry roads and the railway. 2 of the new bridges over the Odo stream, carrying the twin carriageways of the ring road, have already been completed. A 3rd is in hand over the Nima stream, where it crosses the ring road. A start will be made during the, okay, let me mention, 61-62, 1961-62 financial year.
What?
On a new 4-lane Gadgisburg Bridge, 200 feet in length, to replace the existing causeway across the Kpeshie Lagoon. Then it goes on to say, tenders have been obtained for the dredging of the Kpeshie Lagoon, and the contract has been awarded. The survey and examination of the overall storm drainage problem of the Accra area is at the same time being undertaken. Then it moves on to say, anti-erosion measures have been taken in Kita. The main body of the permanent steel sheet piling sea defense wall has been largely completed, giving protection to a frontage of almost a mile, covering the entire of Kita town. Provision of a reinforced concrete capping to the wall is well advanced. During the most part of 1960, Kita suffered no erosion by the sea, but late in the year, it was subjected to several flooding from the lagoon due to excessive October rains. This was a statement made in June 1959. Because I'm sure you have that.
Sure. That's it.
June 1959.
Who was this speaking?
I don't have the full answer, but as part of
this
the
in Parliament.
Yes.
Okay.
June of 1959. This is what was said in Parliament. Are we not saying the same thing?
Same thing.
Next year, 2019, will be 60 years since this statement was made. So this statement was made 59 years ago. 59. Next year will be 60 years since this statement was made on the floor of Parliament. And we're still here. It's still the same thing. We're still being told about desilting, dredging, you know, and sometimes you even ask, you question the timing of some of these works. That when we know the rains are upon us, that is when we decide to engage in these works. You know, how do you engage in such works in the middle of these issues? So we come and talk about all these issues year in, year out. If you live in a country where, my brother, development precedes planning, you have a big problem. And that's what happens in Ghana. That every time you have the developers taking the lead, and then you now have the planners having to do a catch-up. And by the time the planners do the catch-up, the damage is done. It's done.
That's an interesting statement. Development precedes planning.
Yes, that's what happens in this country.
Course. But how does that happen?
You see, in where we call the developed world, planning precedes development. In this part of our world, our country, development precedes planning. And that's the summary of where we are as a people. So now we're confronted with having to take some very drastic measures to make up for all the things that we have not done in a long while. Today we're talking about $700 million. I'm sure that in 1959, we're perhaps looking at a fraction, a very small fraction of that money. And then if we have the foresight to expect that, look, in 1959, I'm sure that the population of Accra was less than 1 million. Today we are talking about 4.5 million. I'm sure that if we did a census, it could probably go beyond that. If you live in Accra today and you check the original boundaries of Accra, if you decide to drive from Nongwa, you see where the police is, where that concrete thing is. That used to be the boundary. If you decide to go through the Adenta area, you'll find where Accra ended. If you decide to go through the West Hills area, you would find out where Accra ended. Today, Accra has gone beyond those places. There were places where people didn't habitate. It's changed. But you'd realize that it is these developments that have always gone ahead of the planning. Look, a seemingly new residential area where I live, Chado, behind the trade fair. That place will not be more than, in terms of being a residential area, will not be more than 20 years or 15 years. Whatever was put in a scheme in terms of, oh, we need to have a park here, a lorry station here, a police station here, is all gone. It's all gone. You will not find whatever was envisaged to be the actual plan there. And we have looked on sheepishly in many of these instances. In this recent case, I heard an expert talk about the Kpeshie problem and said that the drain that was constructed, the size was too small. Was there a canal or something? And that it should have been wider. I was speaking with the Deputy Works and Housing Minister on my show a few days ago. Eugene. And he made a point that the urban roads and others go ahead and engage in construction of some of these things without recourse to the hydrology. In fact, you were on the show with him. Yes, you were on the show with him that day. And he said that. So they go ahead and they do their own things. This Kpeshie thing that we're talking about, I'm not sure that that drain was constructed more than 10 years ago. But today we are being told that the size was not suitable. You know, so you even have agencies working even under the same ministry, not in different ministries, not even talking to each other. And so people are doing things their own ways. Look, we've got to a point where we need to prioritize. As a nation, we need to prioritize. We cannot spread ourselves thin. We cannot do everything at the same time. We do not have all the money. So we need to sit and prioritize. Otherwise, can you imagine the amount of money we've spent on desilting and dredging over the years? If that were the solution, we would have had it. It is money going down the drain. And until we are able to do the difficult things, the big things that will ensure that a recurrence does not occur, and it's not something that we can do in a year, but we could have a program and do them over a 5-year period. If for nothing at all, at least the populace will see that, look, this is where we intend going. We have started this way. It's going to take this time for us to get there. But at least all of us will be agreeable to a plan that we think is working, that we're all following. But this issue of let's dredge, let's desilt, let's award contracts. Look, the deputy minister in the tape you played was talking about, oh, we might have to consider sole sourcing. We might have, in June?
Because things have delayed, if they want to follow.
But we knew.
Yeah.
You see, the beautiful thing about this, beautiful in quotes, is that we know our rainy season, although weather patterns have changed.
He said 3 months ago, let me quote him, he said, we started about 3 months ago by desilting major drains such as the Odo and Kpeshie Lagoons, the Nima drains, the South Kpeshie drain, the Sukura drain, Kpeshie First Light, Odoko drains, among others. So that's 3 months ago.
All I'm saying is that 3 months ago, something started. It has not ended. The rains have met us. So we are in the middle of doing this desilting. And I'm saying that desilting and dredging, if you go through your records, you find out that every single year is done either by the AMA or the Ministry of Works and Housing itself. You would find a plethora of statements. Oh, we've started the dredging, we've started the desilting. It appears that that is not the solution. The things that we need to do, the minister says that we need 700 million. That 700 million, what it definitely tells us is that, look, what we're trying to do with this desilting and dredging is to try and mitigate the impact of these floods. And when you are in the middle of the dredging and desilting and the rains meet you, what it means is that what you even intended averting will not be averted.
You might lose it.
Yes. So is it possible for us to say, look, wait a minute. From this point, let us do the tough and difficult things.
Have we not said that always?
I'm saying that let's begin to do them. So if we say we need 700 million, because if you look at the budget, for example, for the Ministry of Works and Housing, you would see that the budget, which represents what government intends doing, has no bearing or reflection to what we are told we need to do what we have to do. So what does it tell you? It tells you that, yes, we know what we need to do, but we are not taking the steps to actualize that. And that is what we need to change.
Okay. Okay.
Can I read this to illustrate one
Yes.
point Randy made?
This is a 2005 one.
Yes. And this Mr. Charles S. Hodogbe, I'm not sure if I pronounced it,
Hodogbe,
NDC, a member of parliament for non-Togo.
That's a different person, not the...
He was
the
associating himself
Okay.
with the earlier statement. He said this, most countries normally develop roads, streets, water lanes, electricity before the buildings are put up. In our case, it is not like that. We build before this infrastructure are brought in, therefore making it difficult for vehicles to go through. The classic point about development preceding planning.
And
that's what we've been doing.
And what have we done with what the National Development Planning Commission has been doing? In fact, at least as we speak, they have a 40-year development plan that gives you a picture. They have a pictorial representation of what they want for this country.
Is that plan still in existence?
I don't know.
I thought we've truncated it.
And if you look at that, what a beautiful country we will have in 40 years if we kept to that plan. And yet we say, don't tie this political party to an NDPC program. Zafia Marking, this is how the Daily Graphic reported on Wednesday. And the headline was, female doctor, baby, 4 others die in floods. 6 persons, including a female medical doctor and a 2-month-old baby girl, lost their lives during a downpour in parts of Accra and Ho last Monday night. Identified as Aya Hayfron, the doctor, who was also a nursing mother, is said to have qualified as a medical officer recently and was waiting for her posting to do her housemanship. The Hyundai Accent saloon car, which was being driven by Dr. Pong, 33 years, who was returning home from an evening church service, was washed away by the floodwaters at the Kpeshie Lagoon bridge. Now, they give us the affected areas, and that's a lot of places. They say, apart from the deaths, the heavy rains caused homes to be submerged in communities including Adabraka, Railway Quarters, Atachimota, Dome, East Legon Hills, Hacho, Kpeshie, Kwabenya, Medina, Ablekuma, Adenta, Ofanko, Weja, Oponglo, Shashi, West Legon, Odona, Ofanko, Old Barrier. Question is, where else was not flooded?
Well, Council, it's good you started this discussion with 2 non-political actors. At least the history they've given us the question that begs for an answer is, where have we gone wrong and why haven't we taken action? Largely political and partisan. We know the problem, but solving it is a big headache. When we take a bold decision to address it through policy, we don't get the needed cooperation and support to solve it. Mr. Abdul Malik Kwekubakwe is lamenting. Randy is lamenting. Unfortunately, I'm also compelled to lament because we all face the same stakeholders when we have to solve the problem. I find myself at Ghana Water. And unfortunately, as a result of Galamsey, if we don't support the government policy on us resolving this, the next 10 years, we may not get water.
You're going to import water, that's what they said.
Well, I don't want to even talk about
I can't imagine that situation where we have to import
government has invested so much. The last time when my respected colleague Ato Forsen was on the floor debating, he said, I mean, our debt, over 20% of our debt. I don't know, I've not verified, but he making that debate extempore on the floor. That over 20% of our debt was as a result of investment in the water sector. 20%. I've not verified, but these were his own, and I'm adopting them as though that even if it is 5%, it's huge. And people, as a result of the excuse of unemployment, are destroying our water bodies. Ghana Water is supposed to spend money in treating water. We want potable water. Water supply is a political issue in this country because if the government is unable to provide potable water, of course, the citizenry will criticize. We need water. Yet, the very problem that is preventing regular supply of water is not being addressed. And when it's being addressed, the same people would turn around and say, oh no, we don't have jobs and all that. So, jumping into the current problem, how do we get out of this? I'm sure if we begin with demolition, I heard
the NADMO people have already...
The former minister for this lawyer, my colleague in parliament, I've forgotten his name. I'll remember. When we had issues 2015, and he said, look, as a minister, he openly said, look, sometimes if you want to take action, you have your own colleagues calling you and say, oh, this thing is owned by this our friend. It's a Ayariga. He lamented as a minister.
Over the June 3 flood.
Exactly. So at what point would we stop this? A chief calling somebody and say, oh, that filling station belongs to my brother. Oh, can we? Somebody knowing that I need a permit, yet he won't take the permit and all that. So I agree with Randy. We develop without looking at planning. Where? In Winneba, there are areas today.
Dr. Charles Rekubrobe agrees with you that we need to be bold about that step where we need to demolish where it is necessary. He says that the solution to the annual flood calamity is to pull down structures which have been allowed to be erected where they should not have been. Bringing in NADMO is an ineffective afterthought. Let's enforce laws, not lament disasters, and not lament over disaster. That's what he's saying.
So back to my point. In my own constituency in Winneba, there are areas that if there is any disaster, no car, fire service cannot get there. Recently, people came, oh, honorable, there is no access road. But when 4 years ago, the late MC and I decided to do demolition, you came on us, attacking MPP, NDC, we voted for you, and now you want to break down. But you have built on a waterway. They come back to you with the same problem, and I think it's all over.
You can't decongest our streets because of same attitude.
So my point is, will stakeholders now agree that we should give government the maximum cooperation to address the very problems that we face. Because you see, the impression that I get is that, oh, the government knows the problems, government doesn't want to address it, or the government is playing games, or doesn't want to look at it and it's really okay. But it is really not the case. The Galamsey example I cited, the government has come under so much pressure because the media, stakeholders, political parties are not supporting that drive. Somebody will go around it and debate, oh, now I quit here, a chrono. Then they will do a unity walk and you see people with banners. I mean, when would this end? So we come back to the same problem.
Maybe this is when this will end. Check it. A very senior lawyer says that this is nothing short of the very failure of the state. Yet, in our discussions, we don't even criminalize the state. A nation that dehumanizes its citizens has no business demanding their loyalty. We don't criminalize the state for its failure, because this is clearly a failure on the part of state actors.
There's more of theory. There's more of theory. If I understand it clearly, criminalizing the state, as in those public officials who are supposed to face the law for failing to act, or criminalizing the state in what sense? I don't get it. I think that realistically, it's a collective failure. Collective failure in the sense that where we need to take action, we don't take action. Randy made the point that, you know, somebody in the civil service, he knows his role, town and country planning, EPA, Ghana Water, ECG, all of them, they know that these support systems must be in place. Do they act or they look unconcerned? And when they look unconcerned, how do we react to these things? Do we only react upon seeing the problem? Then we ourselves are a part of the problem. But I am saying, on the larger picture, the political actors must come to a certain consensus that these are matters that we cannot negotiate, we cannot compromise. Water, you can't. Issues of drainage, issues of sanitation, don't let us compromise. Even if your party members want to play politics, you stop them, hey, this one is a no-go area. So that we can build that consensus and let the people down there understand that as for this one, is non-political issue. If you go and build on an unauthorized land, if you go and build on waterways and it is demolished, you cannot say that you have defected from the party and you are now joining another party. Nobody will mind you. If you are doing Galamsey, you are destroying water bodies and it's going to cost Ghana Water more money to treat. And it will get to a point where, because of the chemicals that have polluted the water, will not be able to get water for the people of Nyenyano, Kaswa, Winneba, Apam, and all that. You cannot say you have banners that you have been deceived, so you are now going to vote for another party. You say, look, I loved you, I want your vote, but stop it. If we continue to act in that manner, MPP, NDC, CPP, I can assure you that there will be that enabling environment for a government to roll out a policy boldly and ensure regularity in implementation. Because I'm telling you realistically, if as I sit here as a member of parliament, if I go and demolish some houses in my constituency and my opponent will cash in and I will lose election, I am being politically correct, I will not do it. The time will come, we all lament, sorry, and all that, and then tribute here and there, but the problem will be there. And that is what Kweku Baako has cited, that is what Randy Abbey has cited. But if we agree that this is a problem, enough is enough. All political actors should cooperate. Stakeholders should cooperate. Let's educate the citizenry. Let them understand that, look, you cannot allow this to happen. We'll get somewhere. So if indeed this is a new call and we all accept it, and Honorable Adongo will agree that demolition is necessary, would agree that somebody building without a permit must not have his way, he would agree that in his constituency, if the person is a prominent chief or a party financier or a chairman and is doing something irregular on a land that would affect people in the vicinity, that will lead to flooding, he would take steps without any fear. We will get somewhere.
Just briefly, Alexander.
Yes, sir.
You are in government. What is it? Because all the things you've talked about, all the consensus you want us
Randy
to reach.
wants to be a questioner.
No.
You have changed position.
Just let me.
Please. So I just want to be sure that Randy will not be tempted to ask me a question.
He's asking you a question.
I'm asking you.
He's asking you a question. I'm allowing it.
Yes.
Randy, go ahead.
Alex, just listen.
Randy, your questions are dangerous. I'm not going to allow you. I will not allow you to ask me a question. Okay. And I will not make a point.
I'm asking everybody.
You dangerous man like that. Ask me a question.
Ask me. I'll see the answer from him.
This consensus that we all seek to reach before action is taken, I find a bit problematic. We have said the same things over the last 50 years. Now, this government at least has taken a certain position on Galamsey. The question I ask is what prevents government...
so much pressure
just hold on.
From the opposition.
No, just hold on. What stops government from doing same with the issue of flooding? Government decided that, look, irrespective of all the issues, the political fallouts, the whatever it is, look, dealing with this thing is for the public good. You're voted as leaders. You need to take some tough decisions. One of the key things about leadership is that you have to take decisions that will not necessarily please everybody. But you know that at the end of the day, the work that you do or you've done will be applauded. Why can't we have the same attitude for dealing with this issue of flooding? Because that kind of consensus we are talking about, we will never have. To have a situation where everybody is agreeable that let's go this way, and we will not do this, we will not do that. It will happen.
Okay.
And that is why at every point in time, we have elected leadership. And the leadership is supposed to take certain decisions. So I say that we have demonstrated something with Galamsey, irrespective of its imperfections. Why can't we have the same attitude towards the issue of flooding?
And he, Afenyo speaks of a very real difficulty, because when it gets into the political arena, it can be dirty. So obviously we need a voter or a citizen who understands what it means to shame a politician who comes to use such, bold decisions to score political points. That they have come, they are destroying your homes, when he knows that they are doing it for the good of the people. Now, Isaac, did you expect that after June 3, 2015, when over 150 lives we're talking about here were at stake, that our approach would have been a lot more concerted? There would have been a lot of urgency, so that today, 2018, we'll not be talking about we are now in procurement process and we don't even know what method to use. Let me give you an idea. There's a group that's known as the One Ghana Movement. They have taken up for about 70 of those who were affected, and they have gone to court. They have sued the AMA, they have sued the National Petroleum Authority, they have sued the GOIL and the owners of the station at Circle. And among others, they clearly show that some of those who have gone to sue, almost the 70 of them, some have suffered permanent disfigurement of their entire bodies. Permanent disfigurement. They were lucky they didn't die. That's their only luck. Some have suffered permanent disfigurement of their faces. Some have suffered fractured legs and arms. Some permanent disfigurements of their torsos, arms, stomachs, legs, chest, and back sides. I mean, what life is this? Did you expect that by now we'll be announcing, you know, a permanent solution?
Well, thank you very much. I think, you know, I was enjoying the conversation when my two big brothers started. But of course, when the politics came in, then I began to wonder whether we would really be doing a nationalistic discussion. Because the truth is simple. What happened on that day, I was not expecting a solution in 3 years, to be honest with you. Because if you consider from the perspective that Randy came, when he speaks about development preceding planning, the major effect of that is that the entire system that is supposed to be able to take that additional residential and other properties and the implication on the existing structures have to be reconfigured completely. If originally you put up a drain and that drain was supposed to take water from a certain source, it comes with a certain volume. Have you considered the communities, when you was talking about where Accra ends when you are going towards Adenta? You had an Adenta barrier. Now, have you considered the huge settlements that have occurred behind that? Where are their water and waste going? If they are using the same drains, even if you then decide that you are going to use the same, that is why planning preceding development would have addressed. So how much are you going to do to be able to take that water that is generated by all these settlements, all the waste that is coming from all those settlements, in order that the existing drains and systems can accommodate it? That is a bigger problem. So that is why you will now need to have this interagency collaboration, which will be able to tell you that, look, when you go to most of our communities, the assembly gets some money. They just call the Ghana Highways people or the feeder roads or whoever, urban roads. They say, oh, we want to create some gutters, you know, and then they create them 55,000 per slot. Then they are released and people go to construct. The question is, 10 years down the line, will those drains be able to take the water? So you go to my constituency, for instance, which is becoming a very big area from what it used to be 5 years ago. I'm sure when you go home every 4 or 5 months, you begin to see Bolga differently from the way you left it 5 months ago.
It's true.
And we have constructed some of those narrow drains, and these developments are occurring. What is the implication for the future if that is not planned? And particularly when he talks about land tenure, you will see the impact of land tenure when you go into some of the communities, even outside of Accra. Where I come from, I have a family land. So I live with my father, I get some money, I just move to the next corner. Okay? And I build there. I only have to tell my father that I think I'm matured enough to move out of this house. And he says, okay, that land is there for you. There's nothing like planning. There's nothing like going to find out what is the plan for that area. I just put it up there.
If he writes or applies for a building permit, he may never get the building permit.
He won't apply for building permits.
I'm saying if he applies, he may never get
that's it. That's another issue. Right. It may take forever. But it is not even one of the things that comes to his mind. That's right. It's not one of the things that engages him. What comes to his mind is, how do I put up that structure? Do I have the resources? Can I get some neighbors to help me, you know, put it up? Sometimes communal support, you put up a property.
Right.
So today we may be talking about flooding in Accra, but increasingly we will be talking about flooding in several other communities in Ghana. And the tone is already set across the country. So Accra, because immediately has been highly urbanized, we are dealing with this problem. But going forward, communities are urbanizing much faster than we think. And eventually, this problem will be in Takoradi, it will be in Kumasi, it will be everywhere. So yes, I agree that the need for
the
political
places you have
will,
mentioned, the problem is there, except that the magnitude.
It's not magnified because now the developments are, we still have some, free land here and there, So eventually, when those places, if you take Boga is almost getting closer to merging with Navrongo. People are building all the way.
Yeah.
Yes. If you begin to go towards the east, there's no difference between Boga and Angodi. People are building. Okay, so what we are seeing is faster rate of urbanization. And these developments are occurring without any planning framework. So we are going to have a situation where we have today, where drains that were built, and that is why the use of interagency collaboration is important, because the Hydrological Service can tell you that in their view, the volume of water in the next 20, 30 years coming from this channel is said that this is the kind of drains you can put there. And even that drain, you need to control settlement in that area. Otherwise, you may actually have much bigger volumes that you are seeing. If it comes to our waste management, it's the same problem. And this problem is also directly related to our waste management system. So why are we dredging all the time? Because they have become the centers of waste disposals. So people look here, look there, and they dispose their waste into the drains. So very nice drains that are constructed, that are open drains, become more or less the septic venues for some of these things. And then you have the gutters being choked. They then move into covered drains where you don't even see, and then the drain is already blocked from inside, and you are not aware until the rains come in. So the challenge is that we need to have a complete view of what is really required as at now. And I don't think that any procurement that is being done today will address the problem next year. It won't. Because the problem is bigger than just the immediate, the immediate procurement of improving a drain there, doing some dredging there. So we need to look at...
So Samuel Atachia, who is the Works and Housing Minister, is looking at the bigger picture and permanence in resolving it when he says it will cost Ghana over $700 million to effectively and permanently deal with the perennial flooding in Accra and in Accra alone. He says Ghana has had the technical expertise to deal with the flooding once and for all, but what was needed was funds.
Yes, it's not only funds. I don't think so.
So what happened to the Conti project?
Yeah, I think the Conti project was also around the same figure, almost $650 million. You see, from what we had...
Atamil sought to ask for a revival of that, right?
Yeah, but do you know what happened? I'm saying that it is not just the funding. You see, NIMA, not long ago, they had to break houses in order to create openings and to create access roads. Is that not the case? So, if it was today, will there be the political will to break people's houses and create access roads? What do we have? We have situations where people call for emergency services and they get there and they are stuck. They can't even access them to support them. That is a challenge of building preceding development. Development preceding planning.
Right.
So if you have 700 million, you will still have to take the difficult task of demolishing people's properties. You will still have to take the difficult task of even reconstructing some of the existing drains that you have. And some may even require you to go into very poorer communities. See, sometimes it is easier when you are dealing with that commodity, Sodom and Gomorrah, where we are even having a challenge. But imagine that you have to look at houses through cantonments and clear them in order to reconstruct drains. Houses have been built on, how do you call those your things that carry a lot of water? Those that you bury underground. How do you call them?
because you are dealing with a national issue.
Water.
Having problems.
Right. Water. You remember?
Okay.
You know they have this buried underground.
Bigger pipes.
Bigger pipes.
Yeah.
Some of them, people have built on them. And Ghana Water guys there, they can't even find their own.
You have to break houses.
Yes, you have to break houses. You have houses.
So,
So,
you see, yeah,
are you getting the point?
No, you are right. Except that over the period too, we had instances of lack of honesty, equity, and fairness in this demolition exercise.
Right.
I don't want to go too much.
No, I agree.
But if you recall, we demolished the whole hotel, $5 million hotel, on basis that was on a waterway. It turned out to be false.
Yeah.
Eventually, the state had to pay some money.
Yeah.
Judgment that dead. So sometimes there's the need for fairness.
Even the process of demolishing that.
I agree.
Due process,
Yes,
obviously
right.
was not followed.
The challenge,
Part of the
the challenge is basically at the end of the day, are we going to do it?
I'm
It's
sure
not
you're
just about
referring
the
to the hydrants.
Yeah, the hydrant.
Yeah, hydrant.
Yeah. Some of them
hydrants.
they have those challenges.
Okay.
So all I'm trying to say is that the solution goes beyond money.
All right.
Even though money is a bigger challenge because it is difficult to access the money, but the other one is more of a political will. Of course, I feel we can understand if you want to have a political, what do you call it?
Can you make your point?
Understanding, but you see, if you benefited from telling somebody that meshe galam se mu kena. I don't know you, but if somebody says meshe mu gamalan se mu kena,
who said that?
Somebody said that. And the same person now comes tomorrow to say that, oh, I'm trying to fight Galamsey. And that you are supposed to support it.
Let me share views that are being shared with you by our viewers and listeners. Yeah.
When you were given the opportunity to discuss a national issue,
But I wanted
you were
to share some
you could not
information.
even speak.
The 20% that you referred to, it was referred to on-lending loans. You know, there was a problem of...
No, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, whatever...
institutions that...
You stated that...
No, I don't have a problem with... I just was quoting him to make my
was
point.
saying that 20% of those on-lend loans arrangements are in the water sector.
In totality, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, in the water sector.
So I was...
And you were coming for more money and he was saying that they should just give it to you because you won't pay.
Okay. Anyway, let's hear what some of you have been sharing. Kweku Enchibwe Siakon says that the solution to flooding in Accra is to begin to charge civil servants and ministers of state with manslaughter for deaths that arise directly from their negligence. Either people will shy away from those MDAs or only serious and competent people will take the taxpayers' money to accept responsibility for works and housing. So that's from Kweku. Seems to agree sort of with the senior lawyer I referred to earlier who said the state is complicit somewhat and yet we never criminalize the state in these matters. I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, I'll share a good number of your views on the flooding situation and particularly what the solutions should be. And after that, we'll deal with other matters that we have tabled for discussion. This is Newsfile. We'll be right back.